Well, I'll split it all out for her so she knows.
Yeah, 'cause overall, you're still just a little under half.
With my budget for this year. Yeah, yeah, I usually am, under my budget. I think there was one year I was real close to the budget, but, normally I give back quite a bit.
So now, your health insurance, you're paying for Judy's through well, just in this fiscal year.
As in, yep, it'll be done now in June.
And you're a little under half on health insurance. Trying to figure out, but it really didn't go up any. Only did a little.
Because all my employees are still single policy except for one.
I'm just trying to figure out from 2020 to 2021. In 2020, you would have had overlap between two employees in health insurance.
Yeah,
I'm trying to see where that reflects. Really doesn't show up hardly at all. Is there another place that you?
it's probably gonna be in the motor vehicle area because that's where Kim and Valerie are out of there, plus some of mine. And Judy was down in her area in drivers.
It's, so the, motor vehicle's 81, and the, for tax side is the 92, or the 90.
94.
20. Do we need to add more in health insurance for Judy's?
For this year, you mean? Because I'm wondering if we.
Yeah, we might have to do that during the amendment or whatever you do, budget.
Because you're.
No, for now, right now,
Yeah,
for
because
this.
you're at 13,744 out of 26,664, so you might have to change that for this year. Next year will be fine, it's this year.
The current year we're in.
Right. That's what I mean. 'Cause that's why I said the overlap, when you have two employees, you might have to do that amendment according on line 8,100, 11,300. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, she's gonna be under for her whole budget, it's just that line item has to be covered.
Well, if she has enough in her, like,
My bottom
in Fund
number.
2,
Mhm.
in the,
So in the general supplemental, she's at 50,396 out of 102, so she's real close.
we'll keep an eye on that when we go into, when we do an amendment.
That's what I thought.
Because that number for insurance is gonna be pretty stable, it's just, nothing else will really change in that area, will it?
Shouldn't,
So, we might be okay.
telephone, telegraph. Is the telegraph on there just because it's always been there since there was telegraph?
Because if you change, you have to change it on every single one, and there's no reason to.
I think everybody's that way.
I mean, what happens if telegraph comes back? We're ready.
Well, yeah, you got it right in there. I had never thought of that. I just always thought it was interesting to see telegraph on there.
Yeah, I can see one of the news media outlets getting a hold of that. We're still paying for
Oh,
telegraph.
well, yeah, I don't think we're so archaic here at the Winnebago County that we're still using telegraph instead of computers.
Well, you do have to use a fax machine every once in a while, and that's kind of old school too anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any more questions.
And the revenue part, that's always hard to figure out where you're at in revenue. But our interest rates have been pretty good, so hopefully talking to the banks, they're hoping that they stay like that. And we've done a first year of our tax sale online, so we seem to have more bidders, so we would have more registration money coming in. So we're hoping that that will increase again this year.
So you're saying they're doing it online?
Yep.
And the revenue comes to us?
Yep, their registration comes to us,
Now, if they do the driver's license renewal online, then it doesn't come to us?
No, because we're not doing the service here. Because we get paid $7 a license. And we keep trying to up it to 10, but the state won't give it to us. And some of that registration fee for tax sale goes to the person that's running the tax sale through our website policy group. So we're just hoping, we're trying it. Last year was our first time trying it online tax sale, and it seemed to go pretty well. So we're hoping that it will continue to grow.
What's anatomical gift revenue?
That's the organ donation.
Oh,
The pastor.
okay.
So I suppose a lot of this interest that we're getting from banks and whatever else has a lot to do with the cash on hand. A couple of years ago, we were down there pretty low, and our interest coming in wasn't much.
Right.
So projections for next year is twice as much as what we had 2 years ago.
Mhm. Yep. And it will be for 2022. We're going to be ahead in our revenue.
Looks like
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
So for me, it's hard to put figures down. So I might look like, oh, I'm not bringing in much revenue, but we do at the end. And And this can probably change because we don't know if insurance is gonna be 20%, do we?
Right,
Could go in.
Hope for less.
we can hope for this. We're budgeting to be safe at this point.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the overall grand total on revenues. You know, 18 was 18.7, 19 was 19.2, 20 approved was 20.2. Then so far, we haven't inserted the numbers on a lot of these because we're only 8.1 million on our requested. The last page of revenues. Grand total number.
The requested, for 31, or 331,000?
I'm just looking at page 48 of revenues.
Overall, the overall revenue.
Overall, there
Oh,
must be a lot of numbers not entered yet.
there's a few numbers not entered yet, like, so, we had a problem with Tyler on where it wasn't moving things around, so,
Okay.
yeah. I haven't entered any taxes yet in
Right.
here,
Okay,
so,
I figured there was something that I looked at
yeah,
earlier.
there's, yeah, I haven't entered any taxes,
That must be gonna mysteriously appear somewhere, so.
eventually.
So what was Tyler's problem? Or was it?
It wasn't allowing us to, we added some revenue numbers, and it wouldn't allow us to move them from Incode to Eden. So they're supposed to be fixing that today. Because Cinnamon was on vacation, and she's the only one in Eden anymore, so, and she was on vacation. So we had to wait.
Okay.
yeah, you look at the first pages of revenue.
Yeah, I haven't put in any taxes yet.
And hopefully everybody keeps paying their taxes. We've had a lot of them pay at the end of December, so that's good.
So some of those just needed the deduction for this year.
Mhm. Yep, they were very busy calling and finding out their totals and coming in and needing it to be in December. And we got a bunch of them in today too. Which is good because, you know, Winnebago, what are they shutting down? At least, they're not all getting full weeks of work. So you worry about that if we're gonna go back down that path like we did a couple years ago. And nobody can pay their taxes too.
Oh, I don't think they're in that bad a shape where, like, it's just kind of a temporary thing right now.
Yeah, I hope so. But this has been going on since August, that they haven't had full weeks, or full month of work. They've had, Four Cities been at least 1 or 2 weeks a month that they're having to draw unemployment. Lake Mills, it's 1 week a month.
But they're also transitioning between putting in the big rigs.
Yeah,
So things are probably tore down too. Putting equipment in and
yeah.
growing pains. All right.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
What?
Do you have any dental floss things in your office?
We have dental floss, not like that.
You want some gum?
Well, yeah, they're gum, I get it out. I
Okay.
got something stuck between two of my teeth, and it's annoying a lot of me. Yeah, I'll just take it up.
This is what I use, my pencil, too.
Oh, really? I can't, my teeth are so crowded in there, I can't hardly. Oops, these might not work.
Want some gum?
Yeah. Come on here. Thank you.
I've been carrying one of those containers of Mentos gum in my truck. round ones that come in a little container. I like those. They really get aggressive on the teeth right away.
Now, they say chewing gum is the second best thing to brushing your teeth.
Really?
Gets the stuff off in between them.
Who's up next?
Chris Olby. You want a copy of this? Mr. Stendard? Sir?
Just set it here.
Oh, this fancy thing working, oh, there, I got it open. Just, yeah, I can't even get the
Don't
stuff
don't
out.
put the green thing in your mouth.
Yeah.
I want that back.
How am I supposed to chew on this?
I'm gonna spare the YouTube for this.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
The whole time we were at lunch, he was on the phone with his family members, one after another after another.
I spent my lunch in the assessor's office.
Oh, I know, the kids were always calling him that. The backfill revenue,
Yeah,
is that under the business property tax credit
there should be 2 spots.
and the commercial and industrial replacement?
Yeah,
So the last full year, we got a total of a little under 21,000. No, yeah. We're around 21,000.
business property tax and commercial industrial replacement. So under general basic, you would have got 25,536 and 15,759.
I see. Another category, okay. Not all one.
Right, and they'll be in, yeah, some in general supplemental roll.
So I was just looking at real basic.
Oh, okay, yeah, so that would be,
Thank you for your support.
you're welcome.
Oh, yeah, actually, under general basic, that's the big numbers. 38, 81,000 or so. 60-some thousand altogether, probably on in 2019 altogether. Just on those two categories.
Except for,
Well, the backfill. Because if we look at utilizing the TIF money, we got to make sure we only go up to a certain point in case they don't do the backfill. Got to protect ourselves until they've actually gotten done with business. And
Mhm.
so for this year, we're already covered. There's those checks in the mail.
yeah. I respect you in the morning too. I won't say that.
I see over in Worth County, I think it was their recorder, got a bunch of money from the WCDA to do a bunch of scanning and recording of stuff all at once.
Which county? Worth?
That was Worth County. They just don't have enough applications from within the county to justify such the monies. So they can easily get things like that. Doesn't mean we can't apply for it, but
I need to do scanning of all the transfer books in my office too.
what's the budget on something like that?
Gosh, I can't, when I did the drainage books, I can't remember. I mean, it's expensive, but you need to do it.
One thing, Riley Lewis was saying something about, I don't know if I mentioned this before, that they're looking at buying a digital copy of every Four City Summit, which would have a lot of the records we need for our building. You know, and they're fundraising for that now, trying to get that like $16,000 to get, then it's at least searchable and,
Okay.
but he hasn't said anything to you yet.
Mhm. Some counties like bind their newspapers, have them, somebody bind them and so they keep them, but we've never done that in this county. Hancock County does.
But it's still nice to have it searchable digitally,
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
database. Just like with all the other records here, it'd be nice to have a searchable, like our minutes. You only go back so far with searchable minutes that are there.
Mhm. That's another thing that we need to scan in is the rest of those too. Cause then we could search them.
You could sit here and just
Mhm.
search something and give you all the results.
Like one day I was working on finding something with, in the minutes, and I sat and read and read and read, and then finally, I was like read a year and a half before I finally found what I wanted.
We're talking about scanning and searchability and stuff like that.
Nice, if it works.
So all the documents you're scanning right now or have been scanning, is that searchable or?
Mhm. There's a little issue with some of the old ones I'm trying to get worked out with Image Tech, but
to go online and look for documents, you know, like genealogy and stuff, and you look at records like what you have that's available online. Interpretation is a big thing.
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean, and how it was recorded, the names change.
Yeah.
You know, they have different spelling and different recording.
Well, and we try to put, if it's wrong, we have to put how they have it, and then we also put the correct spelling when we index. So that way it's kind of covered.
So how much of your documents are now scanned and searchable?
Almost everything. We're almost all done. We've got some miscellaneous books that are not, so we got to get those done. But
What's in miscellaneous?
oh gosh, like miscellaneous affidavits, like way back when they put them in the miscellaneous book if it didn't fit deed or mortgage, and they put them in there. Anything that doesn't fall under that, easement, stuff like that.
Do people record like a deed to a cemetery lot?
Not much anymore. They used to, but not anymore.
I know at our cemetery, I offer it if they, you know, some families, they want a document that says they bought it.
I know.
Which is good, you know, so I can offer that to them. It's not an actual deed, but it's a description
Right, and where the plot is
of
and all
what you
that.
bought.
Mhm.
And I said, you know, some people, they, well, I want something I can take it down and record it. Okay, I don't know where you guys keep it.
Well, we'll scan it, and then everybody gets the original back.
Right.
We just keep a scanned copy. And I put it under deed, so, and the name.
Make sure your plot's where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
2001, when we buried my grandma Canish, we had a little problem. They didn't quite have things lined up right,
Mm-hmm.
and they ran into my grandmother who had been buried in 74. So in order to bury her, they had to dig him up and move him.
Move them over a little bit.
Move him over a little bit.
I'm sure that was in good condition at the time.
You know, I never did ask. We were out there for the, you know, that they were gonna crack it all
I
up.
suppose 74, they had a
They were
vote.
really worried that everybody was gonna get mad, but all of us who in Norwegian just laughed about it.
What else can you do?
Move over, Grandpa.
I'm guessing,
Gotta make room for grandma.
I'm guessing, like I said before, somebody wasn't laughing. Yeah, well, this one happens.
When I worked at the city of Thompson, Kermel, we used to do the stepping off of the, well, when you're 80-some years old, you can't walk straight because you were in the bar before that. Things didn't quite get stepped off just right.
That
Little bit
stride isn't the same when you're 80 when you're young either.
Yeah.
And you're staggered.
So your magazines or periodicals that went up to 4,500.
$45, right?
No, it's 4,500 here. You got 120 in 2020. 0.
Decimal points off.
Yeah, because I have $45.
That might have been the auditors.
Okay, so we could take about $4,450 off of your budget.
Yeah, that'll help it.
Yeah, it's, I was looking at how that went across, and I'm like, yeah, that's an interesting jump there. Because I said, you must really have a lot of reading.
At 45 is just the subscription to Summit.
Okay.
What do you have for salaries, my total?
$156.
156,585.
Because I put it to 154.80. Because I think last year for some reason it was too high.
Okay,
154,080.
Yeah,
Okay,
hopefully I figured that right, but I think I did.
about 2,500 off there.
Mhm.
then is your bike and diapers right then too, or?
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
Almost all the rest of your increases in the health insurance world into it.
Because the FICA and IPERS is separate, right? That's not included in the top,
right,
Okay.
it's on the
bottom part.
bottom.
Otherwise, do you have any questions on any of it? We had a huge month of, land transfers, like ag land deeds. I don't know what's going on, probably people wanting it all in before the end of the year.
There's a lot of land that's been up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
The land value's up that much that they're,
I think they're worried it's gonna get worse.
Yeah,
uh,
I think the average rate that I could see was like 6,000 an acre. Which is,
I like that land around my dad's place. He sold that because he wants to buy a hotel.
oh,
So he's cashing out on 300 acres. Well, at 8150. Oh, he's from South Dakota. He inherited it from his dad. Mike Johnson bought it.
I could maybe go down a little at under postage. I think last year we had boat renewal, so that made it go up. So I could probably go down to 1,500. I think I had 1,750. But then postage keeps going up, so I don't know. Oh, and dues and membership, did I have 250?
Yeah,
I think I should put that up to 350, because our,
same as last year.
yeah, because our association, the recorders, we had some extra money in our account, the whole association, so they waived our fees for a year, so now we're gonna be paying it again.
So actuals for this year will be lower, but
Yeah,
next year
next
we'll
year.
go back to the 350. Where was all yours? See, your scanning, you really don't have a lot of costs now. You just bought the equipment a while back and
Actually, I rented it for
Oh,
a
you
while.
rented it.
Mhm.
you done with that equipment then?
Yeah.
What line item was that in?
Oh, gosh, let's see, I think it was office equipment, maybe?
Repair and maintenance or services or furniture?
I can't remember which one, that 636 maybe?
Yeah.
No.
Probably, because it was 1,076 in 2019,
Mhm.
very little this year. Well,
Otherwise, you have any questions? Mine's pretty easy, I guess.
document management is your software then?
No, well, that is, for $1 for every recording that we get, that goes into that to make things, that's actually where I took out to
Okay, all
um,
right.
rent that scanner. That's what I took, because that money is specifically set aside by code for us to use to make things easier for the public, to search things. And so I felt like that fell under that, because if we're scanning, it's going to be a lot easier to pull it up and
Okay.
give them a copy. So that money's sitting there, and I just checked with Julie, and there's $15,942. So I put $14,000 just in case I need to request it for something. It's there.
So when we're budgeting, how do we, since it's in there, how does that show in the revenues?
That's kind of scary. Big
Somebody was
black
calling.
bag.
I saw the reflection in the window. It was there.
No, what was the question? Because I totally lost it.
So in the revenues, under that part of it, document management fee, we're showing 1950. Other fees. Real estate transfer tax,
Oh, are you on a different page?
I'm
than
on
me?
revenues now,
Okay,
page 18 of revenues.
my pages are a little different. So account 40401? Or not?
We don't have that in here for revenues.
You're looking at the document management.
You wanna look here quick?
Which,
I'm just talking about this one. or the-
okay.
So I don't wanna have to tax for something that we already have cash on hand.
Well, and yeah, it's on the cash is sitting there.
Right. So that means, how does that reflect in the revenues?
Oh, okay, we're talking about two different things. He's talking about that, I'm talking about this one. This is what's actually,
So it'd be another one of those where you were talking about earlier where we probably wanna. The whatever you called it this morning.
Oh, de-obligations?
Yeah,
I was telling her in the state system I work with, the DNR,
Yeah,
we have a spreadsheet that shows de-obligated. So when you don't spend that money this year that you said you were gonna spend, it de-obligates it, and it puts it back. You know, the DNR, it goes back into the general fund, but, you know,
yeah, this is kind of like that, I
so
think.
it'd make it so we wouldn't be taxing for.
I mean, it's
money
there to
that's already
spend, but I,
sitting there,
yeah,
yeah.
but I have to request what I want to spend. And the one you're looking at is what I spent last year out of that account.
which one? I'm looking, you know, I was looking
No,
at
with
this,
your
right here,
revenues.
document management. We were approved for
Okay.
that, you probably won't spend it. Next year, you've got this, so I'm just wondering where is it reflected here to where the revenue's coming from for that.
Here.
This one, no, or one there. So
Yeah.
really,
So that's what I spent, but,
I know, well, this is the revenue side, so
yeah.
I'm just wondering, how do we,
Or maybe, no, that is the revenue.
how
I'm
do you show in here cash on hand? You don't,
Well,
you just don't
So-
tax as much?
when I do the budget, there's a spot for a beginning balance.
Okay,
And then I take that into account before I
Alright.
tax.
all right, so we don't see that here,
You're not gonna see that in these worksheets, no, but when I do the big budget from the state,
right,
that'll be in there.
balancing.
Yeah, because
But
it'll,
not on individual offices, so
yeah, well, it'll be under,
conglomerate.
so that particular fund is in like the other account.
Okay.
So then,
Yeah, it's not part of the general fund, right?
right,
Right.
so but there'll be, I add all those beginning balances together from all those other accounts, and it'll all be there.
Right.
So then it only tax for what we need.
Right, kind of like Liberty Mutual.
The commercial.
Really? Water.
As a struggling actor,
I'm glad I don't have TV sometimes. Cable.
You don't have,
I don't have cable.
I think it's on local TV too.
I don't have that either.
You just stream.
Mhm.
Netflix and that kind of.
Yep.
Sometimes I think that's all we should have.
Well,
All the cable channels.
I think it's done good with those changes.
You can watch the interesting.
Okay, so I'm good.
Probably why WCTA has to keep raising their rates, because there's people like me, but
No, it's because of providers like ESPN.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They keep charging more.
Raping us.
only because they can.
They know people want to watch that.
I'm already to swear off though. You bet.
and I think they have some of the worst coverage. I mean, the way their screens come up, or their graphics, their announcers are
Oh,
horrible.
yeah. We won't even get into that. I have to admit, I do miss what's his name.
Howard Cosell.
No.
Whoop! I can't go
Michaels?
No, the guy that has bloopers and then he goes whoop. But I can't get as high as he,
I don't remember.
I have no idea.
And there's the other one that's just a, the real black lid.
he got me thinking.
Keep over.
Well,
All right.
anything else?
No,
Watch it up now.
Good.
Thank you.
thanks. Is Eric in his office?
Nope.
So are we done with your budget yet?
I don't know.
We got distracted. So are you thinking with the extra person now that you added, think you'll have time to start doing some scanning and stuff then? Would you rent a machine like she did, or?
It's a good question.
You're not in your office.
Somebody looking for me?
Yeah,
We are.
we figured you had a Ring doorbell or something. where you
Oh.
were watching us.
Well, I was watching you on YouTube, but I
We're
was
running
watching
ahead.
my sick kid at home so my sick wife could go to a doctor appointment.
Oh, sure.
So here I am.
Well, stay back.
I'm relatively fine. I think I'm ready though.
Someone did get sick.
And you've been coughing.
No, it's just awful. It's not in me. Is that coffee?
No, earlier.
So are all of yours under 52 then?
I believe so. If it's not, it's news to me. Do you have a copy for me at all, or I have what I gave you? All right.
Okay, so we're showing mapping and GIS in here too. That was dropped. We transferred it over into general miscellaneous.
Yeah.
Because we had two different spots in general miscellaneous for it. And we dropped one of those.
Okay.
I mean, just,
I think I found I had budgeted for it under a different item also,
okay.
at least in the past. So is it budgeted for somewhere else, or do I need
It's
to
in the
budget?
general miscellaneous. We
Okay,
have two line items for it, mapping and plotting, and one was mapping GIS. And so maybe 1 year it was under you. I'm wondering if, are we putting enough in there for it? Talk to Sue about it.
it looks like it's probably 14,725, although that might have gone up slightly.
And we pay every year for a 3-year flyover and,
Oh, that I don't budget for. I don't pay
well,
for
and I think
airplane.
we
No, that was in, I just saw that.
in the assessor's budget, there's some money too. I think we share it with them.
Oh, okay.
Or the assessor at the end.
We have,
That meeting comes up with.
Okay, so I have a note here that we moved the license fee for Vanguard software, which is only used by the assessor, to their budget. That's about $9,000.
Well, I show.
But I'm budgeting, basically $2,000 a quarter to pay for the Beacon website. And then 6,000 for, Schneider has an annual software $700 for a pictometry add-on. I could combine those 7,200 for Schneider beacon plus the 2,000 a quarter. So that's 7,000 plus 8,000 is 15. Yeah, so basically that's the 15,000, I think, right there.
So in the assessor's budget, we show a line item for mapping GIS that's been zero for several years. We have aerial services for 23,986. That must have been the flyover last spring.
Yeah,
Fiscal year 19.
and I don't, like I said, I don't really keep track of the airplanes and stuff.
So she does hers every 3 years all at once, and our part of it, we must split up 15,000 per year every year to go towards that or something. Not sure how we pay.
I saw it somewhere. Already today.
Well, we were under 54. It's twice, it's two places in 54. On page 75. Because we crossed out one of them, thinking we didn't need two of them.
Makes sense. So, you just want to make sure that we have the flight properly
Make sure we're
budgeted
covered.
for?
We have the right amount, we're budgeted for that mapping and plotting or whatever. So, do you
Okay.
think that 15,000 under general miscellaneous is that? See, you said that the beacon, you said the beacon site costs 2,000 every quarter?
Yeah, I mean, that's what,
Well, I had 16 left, so I,
shame on you. That's what I have budgeted, and I know what this is for, and if there's other money, I don't know what it's for, and I don't
So
spend it
the
either.
beacon site is under what line item?
That is under software maintenance, that's where I have put it, so that's the 42,101.
Okay. So it's a large item that
Well-
you're a small part of.
Yeah, yep, and that's, yeah, because that line item pays for basically all of these different software contracts that are not necessarily contracts, but maintenance on software that we have, like the Tyler products.
So in 19, we actually took 15,900 out of general miscellaneous and 15,000 out of his budget, so.
I'm not sure, I don't know. I think you need to,
We need to clarify that, what's going on.
I
yeah,
think, for me, it looks like back in, well, that's actuals.
Because 18 and 19, there was a line item for mapping the GIS, and then we dropped it.
Yeah. I think the 15,019, did we do maybe a budget amendment and reallocate that money?
but it shows it's taken out of both places, that's why I'm not sure.
Yeah, because we got it out of 54 and out of yours.
Well, it seems a little uncanny that 2019 I would have spent $15,000 even on that line item, so I don't know what that is. Maybe it did. I can't
I wonder
answer
if
that
it came
right
out of
this moment.
Sue's, if maybe Sue's portion came out of Eric's account and county's portion came out of 54,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's how,
I guess.
I knew we were cost sharing it with her, but it almost seems now that we're paying the whole bill. And
Well, I know I have a note that I think for the 2020 budget, I reduced my budget by $9,000 that Sue was going to add to hers, and that was for this Vanguard software that they keep track of
yeah, that's separate.
their stuff with. And that's only used by the assessor's office, so it
Right.
makes sense that they would be paying for it. But that's all that, as far as the assessor stuff, that's the only note I have about changes.
Did we ever get Eden figured out the other day?
They connected this morning, and it's not fixed as far as I know, but now Cinnamon is back, and she's trying to get a hold of somebody else to hopefully get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
I guess one thing I was gonna make sure that I mentioned is, at this point, my 2020 budget that we're in right now, we had decided to budget for that software upgrade to Financial 10. And so that's in my current budget right now for this year, 2020. But it's not gonna be spent because we didn't decide to do that contract back in January.
So this would be another one where the cash is on hand, carried forward to the next year. So
Yeah, and so I was talking to Carl about it, so I have budgeted for it again in 2021, but I'm not gonna spend the money in
is that
2020.
63,200 then?
Which line are you? No, that it's split between the IT services 42,100 and the software maintenance, because they just do it on a contractual period for using it for a year. It's like
Data processing equipment one, last year you went up to 44,500 at 63,200. You went to.
yeah, but then I didn't spend it. So
Another one that you aren't gonna spend this year then?
well, I had that on my list to bring up as well. So in 2019, I budgeted $30,000 in that item for a storage replacement thing. There's storage, and then there's like the processing power of the servers. And this is our main servers that run everything that I installed back in 2013. So I budgeted to replace the storage part of it in 2019 and just didn't find the right thing that felt like it was a good deal and a good buy and a good time to do it. And so that was not spent at that time. And then I budgeted another $30,000 in 2020 for the processing part of that. So it'd be like 60,000 total, and I haven't spent that yet, but that could probably be, I can probably get that done before the end of the budget year. And I'm thinking that it might, what I've found is that it would actually make more sense to do both pieces at the same time, and it ends up being a little bigger project. But then you're not trying to make an old piece of equipment work with a new piece of equipment and have a hodgepodge, and then go through the same work to upgrade it again after that.
So are you thinking the overall cost of that's gonna be what?
Probably in the $50,000 to $60,000 range for the
So would you
equipment.
do that at the end of the fiscal year with part of the bill coming before and part of the bill coming after?
Well, and that's a good question. What would the best timing be as far as the budget? And being that there was money in 2019 that I didn't spend, is that still, I know it's not just sitting there, but is that still something that I should tap into to try to get it all done before July?
What was the project?
The storage and server upgrade.
Oh,
So we started talking about this 2 years ago, and
We can't do anything about 19. You know, once the money's gone back in, it's in a
yeah.
yeah,
big fund.
yep,
So really don't wanna go over budget.
yeah, so that's fine. So
Can part of the equipment come after the 1st of July?
yeah, I mean, we can go with, I can try to work it so that,
Coordinate the two pieces
Yeah.
together and
so that part of it's you know, that basically we'll be doing the project during June and July and have the first part of it done in June and the second part of it done in July.
This is under 63,600, or 62,200.
Yes, with also some under 42,100 for the service part. There's the equipment and then there's some expertise technician time to do the installation.
So is there anything else under the 63,200 that you had for, is there other equipment too?
63,200, no, it would be mainly the server project, and then that's where I buy, like new desktop computers and printers and that sort of thing. So I have,
10,000 more.
yeah, there's several different computers that we need to replace and a copy machine or two. Basically at this point, I'm starting to look, and the equipment that I first installed, like the first year that I was here, is about due to be replaced. So I'm starting to replace some of that. And I'm trying to have a healthy balance of getting good life out of it. You know, at this point, by the time we do the server replacement, that'll be 7 years, which is actually longer than the recommended time. But I felt like they were still working and I wasn't ready to do the project. So I think, you know, they've still been working well, but I don't want to wait much longer. And then some of this other stuff too, like with a printer or a copy machine, you know, 5 to 7 years is generally a pretty good life. And it might work past that, or it might start having a lot of problems. And I'm trying to, you know, if we can sell something off or trade it in or somehow get it upgraded before it starts nickel and diming you, that's what I'm trying to do. Because, you know, I get stretched pretty thin as it is. And if I'm getting called every time this copy machine or whatever starts having a problem, the people using it aren't going to be happy, and it's going to start taking me away from doing other stuff too. And that's kind of how I've approached it. So as far as my 2020 budget, I'm going to be significantly under, probably about 100,000 under spent.
So can he, I mean, he's got, you know, software, hardware, and the equipment and processing. Can he take from different ones to help pay for all this year then? He's going to be under?
Mhm.
And then can we lower some of this for next year? If we can get it all done this year? Or what?
I didn't budget the full amount for this year, you know, not the full amount of that server project. So I could bring it down a little, like if
What's
you,
that server project gonna cost?
well, it'd be, I'm gonna say just very roughly like 60,000 of equipment and like 20,000 of IT services.
But you have the Encode, the new Encode financial.
And that's totally separate than what the server, what do
I'm
you,
talking for cash flow, or I call it cash flow, but for your cash.
the accounting
flows.
software? Or the,
No, everything associated with the server
yeah,
that you wanna get done.
yeah, I would say 80,000.
But you have extra money from the Encode stuff for this year,
Yes.
so you could use that money for that.
Yes, I could. I didn't want to do that because that
I'm
wasn't,
trying to get to a figure for this year, for 21. Is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do, what you're gonna expect.
so, yeah, I mean, I guess if you know, the money was budgeted for that software project, which isn't going to happen in the time period. So if you want me to repurpose those funds for the server project and get that done,
My fault.
I can do
was
that.
question.
okay,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there a way to lower 2021? Is there things that we
That's what I'm
double
getting
budgeting in 2 different years?
I could probably take like 20,000 out of the, what is that? Out of the 63,200 dry processing equipment,
How much?
$20,000.
Now, that VIN code is only
That's under IT services and software maintenance, 42,101 and 42,100.
got nothing there for
Yes, I just budgeted for the whole project again. Put in the same numbers I had put in before. But that doesn't include, and I was not in here when it was discussed this morning, that $4,000 training contract thing that Julie had asked for.
That should come out of the treasurer's budget though, because it's special just for her.
Yeah, so I didn't hear if that was decided, if anything was decided on that. That I don't have included in here, if it was approved.
that'd be 2021 for her, wasn't it? I don't think she put it in her budget. So we'll have to almost add it to her budget. Would that be under her educational and training or?
I mean, that's what it's for, it's for training.
It's the 8100's the tax side of it.
90 is tax.
Okay, so it'll be down probably there. So, she's got $1,000 in educational training in that. So she'll have to add 4,000 to that, won't she? Just to cover herself. Hopefully she doesn't use anywhere near that, but. And that's for the ed code, you call it?
Yeah.
Call it Financials 10, so that we can keep it straight. I could probably reduce that hardware budget another 10,000 and spend the money this year on a different thing. I was going to update our firewalls, which are also at that same age.
Okay, what were you talking about now?
If you want to reduce the 2021 budget, I could take another 10,000 out of the equipment for another separate project that I was going to do next year.
The 63,200?
The 63,200, yes.
So you're down to 11,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, I can do everything this year that I was planning to do next year, if that's acceptable, due to the budgeting difference. And I could also take, let's see, I could also take 15,000 out of the IT services, 42,100.
How much?
15,000. So that should leave me at like 97,500.
Yep.
Right? And the bulk of that is the upgrade to the financials tab.
Well, I think that'll help.
Where else were you gonna take it out of?
The one that I just said was 42,100
I got that
IT
one.
services. Oh, that's all that I,
Well, and then the 30,000 out of 63,200.
so that's 40,000 to 45,000.
You take it, how much out of the 63,200?
30,000.
Okay, and earlier said 20,000, right?
Yeah, and then I came back and said, well, knowing that there's a significant budget remaining for this year, I can try to just get that all done this year and then free it up next year.
Well, that's all the questions I had.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add at this point.
Just for information, why is that all over the board going back to 2018?
Which one?
63,200. Let's go from 71,000, 14,000.
So in 2018 was when we did the phone system project, and that was like $50,000 to $60,000. I was looking at that myself going, what did we do? So that's why it was so high at that point.
That's good. Curious.
Yeah. I'd see if there aren't any big projects between the, 10 to 15,000 is probably just the replacing desktop computers and small items. That's probably kind of the baseline, and then when there's projects, it'll bump up. So. And you're sending out another copy in email, Carla, of the final numbers
Not
after
till I'm all
this?
done.
So, just make sure that I have this written down right. 2021. So we adjusted two of the numbers that I had submitted. 42,100.
Went down 15,000.
And so that is 97,500. And then we adjusted data processing equipment, 63,200, down from 41,000 to 11,000. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And those are the only two ones that we adjusted. All right. All right. Well, thank you. Let me know if there's any other information you want or
Okay.
questions that you have.
Will do.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I suppose we should get Sue up here just to clarify on the mapping thing.
Yeah, we could ask her.
It's getting hot in here. Or it's just me.
Well, the noise is done out there now.
Yeah, I can open it.
Call Sue.
Mhm.
This is Judy.
Yeah, this is the supervisors, is Sue available?
She is not at her desk, but I will tell her. Do you want her to come up there?
Sure.
Okay, I'll have her come up as soon as she comes back in.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, bye.
departments we can cover while we're waiting?
Clerk of court isn't coming, but they stay pretty much the same. They're six, department six. You wanna look at that quick?
It's all the same.
How about zoning?
Um,
Doesn't have any increase, he's the same.
I don't think I didn't even think about making him a time, so, whoops.
Trying to see what his actuals are, he's under, way under.
Yeah, everything I've seen come through seems to be, it would be well under. Number is zoned.
I don't remember. Terry, do you have zoning in front of you?
That's in 53. He's, all the numbers are the same as last year. So these, did you just put the same number in, or did he submit it?
He submitted.
Okay, well, I guess I'm not gonna challenge it then. Was it in 19 that he started? Probably. So you had extra hours, just probably getting trained by the hour.
119 isn't good. Well,
So not much in 18, and it jumps in 19, then drops in 20, so I'm thinking you probably put extra hours in 19.
There's a few.
I can't remember when Jason did it versus when Matt did it. I don't remember what.
Seems like it was about a year and a half ago he came in on that.
Mhm.
I would guess it's been about that. We had it here for last year's budgeting.
So we've got a department under general miscellaneous called Housing Commission, and a line item grant and loan.
When I first started,
Is that when the $5,000
Yep.
tipping fee ones?
Yep.
So I guess I'd ask you guys at this point, if this historical society came to us with another $3,000 request, but for the purpose of acquiring the Summit, all the Summit newspapers in digital format, searchable, are we interested in giving that $3,000 for that?
They are
They're working towards acquiring a copy of every Summit ever printed in digital format, so it's searchable. It's gonna cost them $16,000. If they came to us with a request for, and they might come with more, but are we willing to go to that $3,000 that we used to give them for going out of the county? We don't give that anymore. We didn't do it last year.
yeah, for the
still part of them, but we just didn't feel like we could do it last year because it wasn't justifiable. And this is a one-time project, whereas before it was just more operations they were trying to get money for. I see it as being a value to us if we had access to it.
Does the summit already have them in digital, or is that something they have to make
That's it, I don't know.
in the digital?
Probably don't. It's probably gonna cost that to digitize.
I would assume, because if they already had it in digital, they just share it with the area or the historical society.
So it sounded like they were gonna go to the city of Forest City and they were gonna go, they're gonna ask different entities to chip in on it.
Let's wait and see what they do. We'll see.
Having that in digital form and that benefit the offices here and
Well, like for our purposes, trying to find out what the heck the purpose of those three heads were, or nothing like that. Or historically, when was it they did this or that, or.
Pull up a
Sure.
slideshow for me.
Popcorn?
It's really not quite as interesting as a movie, probably.
That's why I wanted the popcorn.
My IT guy said not to put those in. Here.
Movies?
No, they're little.
Flash drives.
You're not supposed to do that?
The state will not allow you.
Oh,
to have
because they could be
flash drive
corrupt?
hooked up to any state equipment. Because it could be something in.
Yeah, well, that's been in my possession for its entire life, and there's only one file on it, so.
It's like what they say, never pick up a flash drive just laying outside the building and plug it into your computer.
Yeah, every year Eric makes us do all that training, and there's always something in there that I wouldn't have thought of. I assume you guys are on schedule here?
Yeah.
I was until 2:30, but.
We can go, because didn't you say that
Yeah, no, you can go.
Andy is,
The only one we just called my number up here.
Well,
for a
Jennifer.
question, but she's out, so. She wasn't even scheduled, we said a question for.
We don't have to talk about this now, but I updated the memo with more supporting numbers for the wage stuff, if you guys want a hard copy rather than email it to you. One's for Carla, I guess. I just put that together today, but. Otherwise, are you guys ready to get into budget stuff? Okay. I thought I would kind of go through the highlights in the presentation that I put together first, and then we could get in nitty-gritty details of line items if you want after that. So, Carla, can you work me through the
Yep.
presentation? Okay. The next slide, please. Coverage of what I was going to go over here initially. Pretty much some goals that I was after when preparing my budget, secondary road department budget. Trying to have a strong ending balance And then focus on how my budget affected the tax levies. Factor in health insurance adjustments, salaries, and then construction target. Next slide, Carla. The first thing is ending balance, and this is something that personally I think is something we need to improve on from a secondary road standpoint. I did some comparing with other counties to see what kind of ending fund balances they're holding. And the reason you'd want a strong ending fund balance is for emergencies, just for cash flow reasons. Sometimes in the late summer, before we have fall taxes coming in, we have a lower cash balance, and so we don't want that to restrict all of the construction that we have going on in July and August, September. Another thing is things like gravel crushing, which we only do once every 4 years or so, and things like paving, where you can spend a large chunk at one time. So if our carryover balance, our ending fund balance is, a couple $100,000, where it's been sometimes in the last few years, it's restrictive for spending in the fall, and also it doesn't really provide us with any options for emergencies, or if we have a paving project that needs to get done and we don't have the funding from FM or swap accounts. So I guess I wanted to throw this number at you. Across the board throughout the state, secondary road fund balances are about 44% of annual expenditures. That's yeah, I was surprised by that. And, for a small county like us, who has, one of the smaller budgets, it still adds up to 1.9 million. I know they've had good reason for trying to keep that lower, because, a larger carryover balance looks like you don't need it. In my proposal, we do need it, maybe not today, but in a couple of years when we have more construction needs and more gravel to crush.
Can we put it on hold for 10 seconds?
Sure.
We had a question on the GIS mapping costs.
Uh-huh.
It keeps jumping around when we're putting it, and it never seems to be in your budget. Is it, we never see it.
What part of the GIS are you talking?
Well, we have two different line items of 15,000, give or take. So in 19, we got 15 out of one and 14.7 out of another, but all out of ours.
Are you talking Schneider and?
I don't know, it's just identified as GIS mapping. And
Okay, well, there's the annual payments of the contract for the pictometry flight, which I do 10 each year.
okay,
And then,
and what's the overall cost?
I don't have the contracts with me, but we did it for 2 flights and then we got it cheaper. And what was your payment this year? Was it like,
15,000? Isn't that what?
For that part of it?
that's an annual, you want me to go down and get the contract?
We can actually do this.
Well, that's it, that's a 3 week, or 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2.5 weeks.
Yeah. The part that I get paid for doing comes out of mine.
Okay.
I pay for the, part of the flight for each year of the, contract payment. And then the annual, there's a monthly charge for the Beacon webpage that Eric pays for that. So my understanding, the only thing you guys should be paying for anything on the GIS, other than what I just spoke of for Eric's, and I don't, does that come out of general or does that come out of Eric's?
That comes out of Eric's,
Okay.
just the flight then.
The flight, and then the flight, which I believe comes out of general, doesn't
I
it?
think so.
But we have 2 areas.
Well, yeah, so what I think I should do is have Chris do a printout of all of those line items.
18 and 19, where it was coming from,
Yep.
and what they went towards.
And, yeah, so we'll print out, I'll have her do that tomorrow, because she just left for the day. So I'll have her do that tomorrow, and then we can figure out what what that is, and then if we have questions, then we can ask it.
Okay, that sounds good, because as far as I know, the only thing should be the pictometry flight
Mhm.
and the hosting of the beacon. And then there's,
And Eric said that's like $2,000 every quarter.
Every quarter, we said,
I thought it was more than that.
so 8,000 a year is what he had.
Okay. And then as far as my software, we switched that from Eric's to mine last year, and so I budgeted again for this year. So there's any printing or anything like that we do out of
We
my budget.
We had two different $15,000 budgets for GIS mapping, and I wanted to make sure they weren't double budgeting or something.
Yeah.
So, if she
I'll
can come
have
up with
print,
that.
I'll have Chris print those line item numbers off tomorrow.
I'll be here tomorrow, so
All right.
But-
Should have shown up in actual, so, for last year.
Yeah, that's what's weird, is there's a 15,000 in Eric's budget and a 15,000 in general miscellaneous. And for 18 and 19, and then there's nothing for 20. So it looks weird. So, but like I said, I'll have Chris print those tomorrow and.
those are the costs that I'm aware of with it. And then,
We should probably identify if we didn't budget for it, and we should have. We gotta know that.
yeah, and like Ezra, that's minimal. Scott's got 2 seats. And I've got 2 seats, and Eric pays for that. If I remember right, it's like $400 a year maybe a piece.
I don't see that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's not but that again comes out of his, so this part of it should be totally different.
Well, we'll find out on our end. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll pull the contracts too, and
Yeah.
if you want any numbers,
Cross-reference it.
All right.
okey dokey,
Thanks, Sue.
you bet.
Okay, so while I've identified that as kind of a target, I mean, by no means can we reach that in the short term. We try to work toward it. What I've proposed here is, based on what I presented, is a balanced budget, so expenditures and revenues are equal about 0. In my hope, we would have a good budget year, and all of the unspent would then sort of work us toward that higher ending balance. Like I said,
Can that be put in an interest-bearing account
It is.
It is already.
already?
we did have some conversation about some sort of set-aside capital fund in order to kind of, protect it, set it aside so it didn't appear to be just fluff money, right? So that it's for something specific in the future, and it sounded like the best way would.
Elizabeth said you can do it. The problem is that when you go to do budgets and you go to do annual reports and that kind of stuff, you have to add it all together and put it in the secondary road fund anyway. So it's gonna look,
the same on paper.
Yep.
I think the more important thing is for anybody who sees those numbers to say, this is something that we're saving for a reason.
A rainy day.
Well, it should be something that we can forecast and predict, and maybe we'll get into that more with construction discussion.
It's a zero-sum game in essence. I mean, once that fund gets built up, then we'll be going back to the way things work, so. Correct.
What do you
Well,
think?
I'm not so sure I could go along with 44%, but, what you say has validity.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to let you know that if we start to get our ending fund balance over 750,000, $1 million, $1.5 million, that we'll come up with a plan for it.
But once you hit that goal, then our budgeting will basically go back to the zero-sum game. Our inputs to outputs.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be my target,
Right.
and then if we identify a project that we can't find a way to get funded, then we might spend more than our revenues that year and spend it down. It'll go up and down, but
Right.
yeah.
Kind of like insurance, where you have to have that availability of partially self-funded
Right.
without taxation.
Yeah, I think in years now where our construction needs aren't as much as they'll be in 5-10 years, it's prudent to try to grow that balance. So even though it doesn't show like we're going too much toward that yet, that's my intent somehow.
Obviously, they don't, but, does the state have any say over that? I know they recommend, 20% fund balance, but
They don't have any say over it. They make a recommendation.
What's been our percentage lately?
Percent of annual expenditures that are carryover balance, well, I know that it's been in the range of 250 to 500,000 most of the years I've been here. And this year it was higher just because we had some really big expenditures get pushed a couple months, so we'll be amending to adjust that.
At 250,000, what are you talking, 10%?
Yeah, our annual budget's like 4 million, so.
if you get to that 960, you get 20%.
Yeah, 5% or something is all we were at for some of those years. Of course, we were spending less back then too. Some of those years were before the fuel tax increase and whatever, so maybe it was 10%.
And are you including like federal funding in your budget?
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of pull some of that out, but we've had pretty limited, like the paving swap and all that stuff pays directly. The BROS, the bridge replacement funds, are the only things that we have to pay directly and then receive reimbursements. So that's the only funding source that sort of skews the way our budget looks. And some years we didn't have any projects going on, so there wasn't any ins or outs. So that could throw off what our total budget is by 200,000-300,000. Slide.
Very big.
Okay, so health insurance.
Oh, not that one?
Oh, I had a sheet upside down. Okay, yep, that's good. Every year since I've been here, we've proposed the max statutory levies from rural basic and general basic transfers. We haven't always gotten that, but that is what our proposal has been. Last year we did have the max for rural transfer, the general was 0. There's a whole lot of statutory requirements for, the county making sure they levy enough to receive the state's match, whatever. We're nowhere close to, being that low, because we've had the max. So nothing to really mention here other than our proposal is the same for secondary road fund levies. Maybe you missed one, Carla. No, I did that wrong. Yeah, this one's right. Okay, health insurance. You had sent in the letter to account for 20% increase. So I looked at this one really hard. We had budgeted almost 350,000 last year, and based on our monthly spending on this, figured over 12 months, I think we're only going to spend around 290. So the increase isn't going to affect our numbers quite as much because I think we would have underspent that category. So I'm budgeting 20% increase of what I think we're going to spend this year. So that number can change, I'm sure, as you figure out what that number actually is.
If we're gonna start trying to hit that goal you're talking about, and this, I'm just throwing this out, so I'm crucifying the bill. Why don't you take the 20% off of what we approved of last year?
Problem is, this is a different fund. This is Fund 12, whereas the secondary road is Fund 20.
Which I was gonna explain. Yeah, right. I know what you're saying. But so next slide. somehow we came across the fact that most departments are paying their health insurance out of supplemental accounts and we aren't. The FICA and IPERS we were paying out of there, but not health insurance. That was coming out of secondary road fund. So we thought just to match up with other departments, we would take our health insurance, move it from secondary roads to rural supplemental, and then take some of the real basic direct expenditures and move them into secondary road funds. So we're trading monies around and making the levies change, ultimately to having kind of a minimum net effect. So, you know, the rural supplemental levy would be higher because of it, but our rural basic levy should be lower because of this adjustment. In my proposal there, I wasn't able to get it down quite to match at zero, based on the amount of rock that we've been using the last few years. So those are pretty close. I think the difference is about 10%. So salaries, a little bit over the board. I got a few different groups of employees. Of course, my contract, or workman's contract, which covers 19 guys, and then office staff, which is 3, Eric, Becky, and Mark. In our department's budget, salaries are broken over many, many different items, especially the maintenance guys and Mark. So for each labor category, we try to figure out what we spent last year and what we need to cover it. So then at the end of the day, the summary of it all, I got to 3.1% increase, which I think should be appropriate for our department as a whole. A lot of things change other than just what people make per hour, the number of hours they put in, which directly correlates to, you know, how hard the winter is. And then another part is whether we can find good summer help, and then all of their labor would go into those categories as well, spread, you know, in their timesheets, spread among the labor categories they're working in. So it's a little bit of a, it's not quite so black and white, but I think I have the right number there for how much our salaries will vary. It's pretty close. Okay. Something I haven't looked at before, which I looked at this year, is how much of the local budget counties will put into construction as opposed to operations. And kind of encouraging to see that the numbers we have been using were pretty close to what is across the board for counties, 14%. For us, that correlates to 590,000. I listed these projects out showing 873,000, but as you mentioned, one of them is a swap reimbursement, so I don't really count that. So net local, 563, pretty close to the 590. That's a good number. Be spending on bridges. That gets us this year 3 bridges off the system, replaced with culverts, and then 1 paving project, which eats up a pretty good portion of that dollar amount. So we can talk through each of those projects. The first one is the ROS swap project. This is a bridge replacement project we've been working on for a number of years. I've had to have some easements approved by you guys, so you guys have seen those. There's a Miller and Rasmussen where the bordering properties on here. It's a bridge posted 16 ton. It's been posted for a number of years since I've been here at least. And we're planning to replace it with a double box. It'll be bid at the DOT. We'll pay that locally, so we'll be filling out claims and paying from our local account and then filing for reimbursement. So 310 is budgeted as both an expense and a revenue.
This will be under bid process.
Yep, it'll bid through the DOT. They'll take care of all the bid process and putting together contracts and everything else. So I'll have one of their DOT standard contracts for you to approve. If everything works out, we'll have this one tied with the other 2 bridge projects, which we'll talk about, so that the same contractor gets all 3 of them and hopefully get a better price that way. This one's located down north of Woden, a couple miles. It's like a Schimmelfinning, lives on the corner there just to the west.
On the blacktop there,
Schimmelfinning lives on a blacktop. This is on a gravel road, quarter mile.
just on the gravel.
Bridges, yeah. Quarter mile east of the Woden blacktop down there. Pretty low travel, level B road, but they rise to the top of the list just as the rest of them do, I guess.
It's real close to where that schoolhouse used to be
Yep, same corner.
80 years ago.
Yep. Yep. Only reason I knew that is because I did property research to buy the easements, but
My mom was
you lived in the schoolhouse?
diagonally.
Oh,
They had a natural spring diagonally over, and they'd come to the school over there to get water.
interesting.
It's a level B road.
Going east from the blacktop, yep.
Why does a level B road rise to the 100% swap rate? I would have thought that was something on blacktop.
Well, swap can cover any bridges that are 25 vehicles a day, where the bridge is structurally deficient or functionally obsolete, and where any of the structure evaluation numbers are 4 out of 10 or less. So if we can meet traffic count, we usually have a qualifying bridge. And we only have so many that qualify in the county, so we gotta kind of pick and choose which ones are in worse shape in order to apply that funding to. And also, if we have 2 or 3 years of development to go, we gotta probably not pick the one that's worst, because we maybe don't have time to.
How often did you do the traffic count? 5, 10 years?
Oh, I think we had one done in 15, and then they just did it here last summer, every 4 years or so. And these are tricky. The most recent traffic count, I think, was 20 is all. But you can make a case that the bridge being posted affected the traffic count, so they'll do a waiver for you pretty much.
I gotta wrap my mind around it. If it's a level B road, is it vital to those people that, I mean, the ones that do use it, is it vital to them? Farming.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough case. I mean, nobody's landlocked with this bridge being, even if it was closed, nobody would be landlocked. They just have to go further around. I mean, that's the case with a lot of our level B system is it's inconvenient.
Right.
And they have to go 2 miles out of the way in order to avoid it. But do they absolutely need it? No. That's why it's political. That's why those decisions are tricky. Is because there's a level of convenience that's expected. And,
Right,
you know,
right.
what can we accomplish with our budget? That's a pretty magic question for what our budget looks like.
I mean, put your Russian scale on and 10 years down the road, is there an outside possibility that road would be getting downgraded?
I mean,
I'm not familiar with that.
yeah, I think it depends a lot on if there are properties that can access only off that road, and there still are. There's only, I mean, if you look at our 100 level Bs or however many we have, there's probably only a handful that have, you know, all quarter sections so that you can actually access the properties from the side roads, and you could maybe abandon it, but it's probably somebody's way from home to work, or it's on a bus route or a mail route. So it's always going to disrupt some convenience. And several years ago, we had one down in Grant that we turned to level B that was kind of a no-brainer. It was a dead end, nobody lived there, nobody used it, and it wasn't a mail route or school route, so we changed it. I never heard any, you know, feedback about it, but there's not many of those out there.
Is this bridge just a few hundred feet from the blacktop?
No, probably quarter mile.
Quarter mile back? Okay.
It's over a hill. You wouldn't see it unless you just went to it.
I've been in that area before as far as from our home fertilizer.
Sure. No, Sean Thompson farms the north side.
Yeah, it's a shot right there.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was that one right there.
Yeah.
The other Sean Thompson.
The other Sean Thompson, we talked about the four city
Mhm.
Sean Thompson today.
I often wonder, it's not popular, but if we start to, you know, get a list of bridges that we aren't going to replace, Counties have those where they have big rivers and trestle bridges over them, and they say, when it fails, that's it. We're not replacing them, but
Well, I mean, they're hard decisions, but they're gonna have to, or we have to open up strip there.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll have,
You know that,
you want conveniences in the world, and that they,
yeah. I mean, I don't know how we ever arrived at that. You know, it would take your support and you'd have to be probably unanimous on it, and that's what we're gonna do, and we'll set up our plan for that. But, you know, then we got somebody, maybe have a new board member at some point, and maybe that decision is so popular. I mean, you guys weren't here, I don't think, when most of the level Bs were implemented, but now here you are living with that decision, trying to, yeah.
once we get to 27 or 28. And then by then, the new turbines will also be online, couple of days, so.
Yeah, I think that'll make a notable change in our budget. I kind of did some figuring on that. I can't, maybe I'll find it here, but
You're predicting what, 5-10 years down the road, when we're gonna have a real need for the fund?
yeah, if you look at our history, you know, when the TIF was done originally, 2009 and 10, they did, I don't know, well, what the heck was it? 30-some miles of paving in a couple of years, in addition to just their normal schedule of paving. I gave you conservative numbers. You know, we've been spending $250,000, $300,000 a mile on these cold in place recycling and 3-inch overlay projects. That's a pretty stout rehabilitation. You can get by with less, and that would be cheaper. It may not last as long, so it's kind of all about how far you want to try to kick the next rehab down the line. And if we can get 22 years, 23 years instead of 20 out of the pavements, the whole graph looks way different. You know, we have Pilot Knob Road and R-74 going south off Highway 9 over there that are over 20 years old, and they really don't look too bad. But then,
Maybe new processes that you can.
yeah, I mean, our high pro stuff is really looking promising in the industry too. But then, you know, Hogsback area up there north of Lake Mills, that road's less than 20 and it's falling apart, so.
Well, there is certainly a difference in construction and construction companies and how roads last. You get to some areas, and some of it is just the
But the
area.
base- the base too.
Base.
Well, every time we repave these, we just keep adding and adding, and you'd hope at some point we have enough structure where you can do maintenance rather than reconstruction.
When we did the concrete paving, do you think that's gonna have a better duration?
Yeah, I'm interested to price kind of per mile cost for our next round of paving, but the concrete that we did on 844 and 830 by Rembrandt looks very good still. I mean, it's only 10 years old, but you might hope for 40 instead of 20. So,
Higher investment up front be,
yeah, it's just, you know, when we get to that 40 years, what do we need to do? Probably more than at the end of 20 years of asphalt. Asphalt's pretty predictable, concrete isn't. It might last 40, but in 20 years we might have some major problems that are expensive to fix. So it's, I think, risk reward when you come
I
in.
think putting drainage along with that concrete helped.
I'm sure it did, and fortunately, you know, Jim and the guys decided to invest in that for a lot of roads in our county, so.
If you look at the state projects, you know, they come back after the fact and do their cutting into the drainage. The damage is already done.
Yeah,
you
it's
never
a-
see an interstate resurfaced without having, they put drainage.
Yeah, it's kind of like a safety net or something, but it's, the jury's out on whether that's cost effective among county engineers even,
So
so.
you would think that if you keep that excess moisture out underneath there, that cross oil is gonna be just that much less.
That's true, but you still do have the ditches that are 6-7 foot lower than the road, so you think it would seep out the side too.
Well, it depends on what's inside.
Yeah, you bet.
Some materials hold the moisture better.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the few projects we have in there. The next one is on the state line north of Rake. 12-ton posted timber bridge. These are all about the same, these timber bridges. They're just all failing the same way, and hoping in my career we can get them all wiped off of our system. This is a local project, and I'm still working on the contract with Rome Township and Freeborn, Faribault County.
Freeborn, I would say. You said we know all that.
Faribault, this one's Faribault County. Rome Township, Faribault County, they have some township funding, and I'm hoping that we can cost share. They've agreed to do that, we just haven't got the contract done. So we most likely will have 50,000 reimbursed, and that's shown in our revenue as well. Next one, typical timber bridge, 10 tons, lowered this year. 10 tons is almost worthless except for passenger vehicles, cars and pickups. Be replaced with a box culvert, as many of them are on that stretch of creek. And
How much bigger, okay, let's go to the next one first.
the next one is one that went from not posted to 8 tons because there's some really bad rolling pieces underneath the bridge that have gotten significantly worse in the last couple of years. So it went from no posting to 8 tons. We added that, and that's just an 84-inch metal pipe. So pretty cheap price there. When you go from, 96-inch metal pipe to 12 by 10 box, that's the big jump. So if we can get a metal pipe in there, we can get a lot more projects done. But you can only make a round pipe so big before it's too big to handle. Yeah, that's the main thing. And at some point then they switch into multi-plates, which you have to assemble and bolt together, and we're not really set up to do that kind of work.
When you think about
So they're all designed based on HL 93 loading. I'm not a bridge design engineer, but it's the most current standards of today. And for varied structures like culverts, I think we get way more than that, because every foot up you go, you're distributing the load further and further. The new structures, I don't think we have anything to worry about. I get the clear already.
During the fall, when you guys are coming in, and I can see the scale, and been a little bit guilty of it myself, even, because you just don't, depends on who you get on your truck.
Sure.
And I've seen trucks come in there weighing 10,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Just short.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna happen, so therefore to try and design your rules to be able to take it.
Well, no, we don't have to, because they'll be paying for that bridge if they want.
They get caught, but the thing is, it's pretty tough catching.
Lindsay just accidentally hit the security alarm, so.
That's the initiation we're talking about.
There you go.
So you should go in there going, happy initiation.
Like those kids the other day.
So this is by Henley's place?
Yep. Just over the hill.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Bill, the best way to catch them is to find them in the bottom of the river, but, that's not anybody's desire to fall through a
That happens
bridge.
once in Cassuth County.
It happens every year somewhere.
Well, yeah, I suppose, on a real bad bridge, but when something like that's disappointing, because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's double the weight, right?
It depends on how the bridge is built, and I don't think it's quite so simple. I've been trying to get some answers to how to decide whether to permit oversized loads for going over our bridges, and it isn't quite so simple as that.
Really?
Like a 40-ton bridge is 80,000 pounds.
Case two trucks,
But 2 trucks, that's basically 160,000 is what they say.
Well, I mean, think of, a concrete slab bridge. If you had two trucks on it, the same slab is working to hold them up. Whereas on a timber stringer bridge, you're only as good as the timber stringers that are under your load. Yeah, so there can be some parts of the bridge that are stronger than others. And they're always going to be load rated for the worst part, the worst piece of the bridge. So if something fails, it's going to be that. So you might have a perfectly good bridge, but if it has a rotten pier cap or rolling pier cap where the abutment wall's falling in. That's what happened in this case. Boom, 8 tons. Otherwise, we could have limited them to one side of the bridge by building some sort of barricade system, but we elected not to do that because it was just a $28,000 project. We could fix that in the budget this year. 1 year of inconvenience, I think that was a better way to go.
Something that size should take long to do.
Couple weeks when we can get to it, probably be fall.
Is that the reason for one-lane bridges? You think you see them?
Again, not so simple. I can't seem to get a very straight answer out of that either. We have now, 8 or 10 one-lane bridges that are plenty wide enough to meet another truck on, but they're posted one lane so that the behavior is you don't meet somebody on it. And, 3 of them are the railroad flat car bridges that we built in 2007. Not me, but the crew before me. And, they're solid steel and pretty stout bridges. And I think they just had trouble coming up with confident ways of doing the calculations. There's some research done on how much the stress and strain under certain loads, and I wish I could get more of a straight answer on that.
Sioux County's got a lot of bridges that are, they say 1 truck at a time.
You got a couple on pavements, yeah.
Yeah.
So hoping we don't get to that, but we now have one posted on pavement, the one on 842, and it's not real restrictive, but it's 80,000 pound max.
I was gonna say it's 40 ton.
Yeah, so if you're 96,000 pound grain hauler in the fall, you can't use that bridge by law.
Or even, then legally, they can do 90,000, and that's still over.
Always subject to the load postings, regardless of what the proclamation of the state law says. So, yeah, one of the biggest things at the state level is trying to get these loads under control so that we can manage how high do we design them versus how heavy are the loads going to be. It's like we're chasing a rolling ball all the time because they keep going up and up and up. Forestry loads, they're always making these exemption for everybody and extra postings, or we got to build things stouter. And right now we have most of our timber bridges posted. So faster we can get those off the system, the better. Let's see. Last one's a paving project, which is on the periphery of Buffalo Center there. There's 2 parts to that project. One's locally paved, one's FM. The FM part goes further east there to R20 and completes that kind of neighborhood roads there. Haven't used a lot of local funds for paving in recent history, but I think we're probably going to transition to spend more on paving than bridges is what I would expect. And we'll be juggling our 5-year program to try and make all that work. But if we have 500-some thousand a year to spend on construction, it may be that for a couple of years we spend it on paving, depending on how many bridges we have that are on the verge of being closed. It'll be a game time decision, I expect, when we get our bridge reports to decide. I'd rather not close any bridges.
They're done every 3rd year.
Every second year. Some are every year, the worst ones are, but every other year is when we get kind of the big news as to how bad it is. So,
How many timber bridges do you have left?
I don't know offhand, 40?
I was gonna say, I thought it was right around 40, last time I read something on it, something gave us.
Yeah, it's moving target all the time as we get done, a few done every year. And, this year we had 6 come off the system, and this proposal, plus the FM and other funding, 6 more. So, we're taking big chunks here while we have the funding for it. But 1 year we did 1, so it gets to be like that. We got to crush gravel this year, and we want to spend that whole $600,000 this fiscal year, then that doesn't leave a whole lot of money for construction. So my hope is that with a better balance, we can keep consistent construction and then take care of gravel and paving and stuff with cash balance. But that takes some really hard fighting to protect our budget.
And it's, once again, this is a thing that's, the people from the past have either kicked the ball or they just are getting old under our,
Well,
and,
that's, they just haven't needed it. It's just been the last, what, 10, 15 years that things have gotten so heavy.
yeah, trucks, everybody's got trucks now, and it used to be, well, but even some of the wagons.
Oof.
I mean, they get,
Yeah. Like I said, anything we put in now isn't really of concern, you know, we've got 4 or 5 foot of dirt over top of it.
Our wagons subject to weight limit.
Everything is,
Everything is.
so they say all vehicles and a placard under the sign, all vehicles, doesn't matter, anything else.
Wagons aren't for weight on the road, right?
well, you figure out their pounds per square inch on each tire is a lot worse than the truck.
Oh, I know, yeah.
But they're not,
But they're not regulated like by the DOT,
yeah.
and, which, I mean, they got
Same
wagons
with the
now.
manure wagons.
You get wagons now that are down here 1,000 bushels.
I mean, that's half the problem, the other half is they're probably operating under tax exempt fuel too, but
Yeah, they're not paying taxes either, cents.
yeah, ultimately, our problems always go back to some sort of political issue, right? That's been discussed at length, and so that's the toughest part, but.
I know you explained this to me once, but like, on the going around, right through the mill road and through town there's a little section that's not in red. It just seems like it would be, why is there a little chunk right next to Highway 9?
The city limits jogs, and we maintain all of the road where the city limits line goes down the center line of the road. And where the city limits is on both sides of the road, then the city takes care of it.
Good.
So I don't know, if we try to do it again, maybe I would have done that separate some other time, because we've patched it a couple times, it's not very good shape. We're done it with the south stretch.
They're going through town, and the part that's not getting done is some of the worst part of it.
Well, we've been in contact with the city, so hopefully they have talked about
Now would be
funding their part of it, and then can work with our contractor to do it while they're there.
Yeah, while they're there, and they think they're gonna get as good a bid as they'll ever get.
Yeah, I don't know, if I had this to do over and had 2 or 3 years worth of foresight, I might have, come up with an agreement ahead of time and bid it together and then paid for our portions. It might have been the cleaner way, but it isn't the way we did it, so it's too late now, but. And this project is high pro. Like I said, cost per mile, this is much less than the Colden place, but jury's out as to how long it'll last. So that's kind of the good size of project to gamble on, I think.
Yeah, good test project.
Yeah. So the next slide shows.
Is it stress less if they're going slower speeds?
You get out in South Dakota, and rather than embargo their road, they put a speed limit of 45 or 40 for the semis on that road. Truck speed limit 45. And so someone somewhere must have got the idea that the faster the truck goes, the more oomph it has when it gets.
I've not seen any research to suggest that, and normally roads are designed based on easels, which equivalent single axle load, something like that. Basically, it's just how many times however big a load that they choose in that formula, how many times it goes up and down, before.
To me, it seems like the faster you get across, the less you're stressed.
So for low points is probably different than high points. And the bigger impact is probably how smooth do you have the road and how much your truck's bouncing.
If you get it bouncing, there's no doubt there's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, impact is way more than,
That's why you get the spots where it's, because the truck keeps, the water gets low in that spot, the water bounces into that spot.
so this shows what I'm planning for our 5-year program, which we'll approve with the budget, the DOT's part of it all, in March. This shows the local projects that I'm proposing today in blue and orange. And then all the red projects we're planning to do with FM and swap funding. And those projects bid in February. You guys approved those plans a month ago or something like that. So we have a really busy year for construction, and this looks really nice and promising, and it'll be really nice to see these projects done. What it does to our cash balances in the farm to market account and swap is, you know, not so encouraging. So we'll be spending in the negative, which is fine. But our FM 500,000 a year and swap, you know, 250,000 a year into these accounts isn't quite fast enough to try to build up to these $3-4 million projects. So, you know, I was handed a pretty good system when I was hired here, because they had done so much work before. So it really, till now, when I do more forecasting, am I seeing that we have some we'll have some tough decisions to make, and we'll have to probably decide which things get pushed past the part where they're, you know, good and serviceable. Whether that means letting a few bridges stay closed for a little bit, or having a couple roads that are, you know, just beat up before we can get to them. That, or try to do, you know, thin overlays and push it further down the road. Well, that's really the main point of that one, because this map for next year looks pretty plain. No paving next year, and maybe a few bridges, but
For 2022.
21, or the summer of 21. Yeah, I guess these all be paid from next fiscal year's budget, but they're all this year's summer construction. Fiscal year and construction season don't overlap very well, so it makes it complicated. But, and farm to market funds and swap funds have different fiscal years.
That always go good in that building, close to the middle of the county.
That's where my dad used to live,
You done, Brandon?
I think.
You read?
You've already told that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
the
all.
dingy box out down the south end.
Yeah, okay.
Before we stop there, just east of Rembrandt.
Yeah, that one rides pretty rough. Some of these, I thought too, maybe a couple of years of waiting might be the best idea, just to, you know, let the funds build before we do it, and I don't think we can wait on these. We picked two to wait on, and so those got pushed. And that's the Mill Road, the south end of the Mill Road, far south end, and then the Pilot Knob Road off Highway 9, and those are doing okay. We'll do some maintenance on those, and I think we'll get a few more years out of them.
Well, they've got a couple of, I mean, it's not real bad.
Yeah, I think we're gonna slurry level the transverse cracks and get rid of some of those real,
Yeah, there's a couple.
Real
of
tough
ones
bumps
that
there.
are off y'all's area.
yeah, and he's let me know that, so.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so we'll try to get that fixed up, and hopefully we can gain a couple years, hopefully 4 or 5 years.
I told him when I go by there, my truck is going full speed, he's just taking off.
Yeah, he's going too slow, falling all the way in them.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So it'll be another busy year for our crew, but a little bit less than this year. We had 5 major projects this summer, so it'll be good to have a little bit less major construction. Hopefully get, you know, more of the smaller maintenance type work.
Did I get a copy of that?
This?
Yep.
Yeah, I
Emailed it out, I think.
Oh, you did?
yeah, it's been 2-3 weeks ago probably.
Yeah,
That's not 2 weeks, trash.
And it's in the slideshow too that I just sent you too, so. Yeah. It'll be also an interesting time for Eric as he's learning how to inspect all these construction projects. He's going through a bunch of training here this winter to gear up to be a certified tester for all that stuff. We got a lot on our plate. Biggest year since I've been here, construction, so it's kind of exciting. Okay, so as always, we talk about large category expenditures. Rock budget, I put together quite a few years of history just to see where the trend goes. The price increases modestly every year per ton, of course. And then our usage depends a little bit, you know, on the summer we have, the spring and summer, and the schedule of our summer, whether we pay, you know, some of these really big summer bills before or after July 1st. So a couple of years of history, maybe not good enough to tell, but you see some of these years we had 427,000 spent, budgeted 400 this year, and I think that's going to be tight, especially with all the stockpiling we didn't get done. So like I said, all the realizing of that problem is going to be this year, I think, but hopefully it's enough to cover. But in future years, I think we ought to be, you know, doing our best to keep up. So 425 is what I budgeted. I think that's where that number's got to be.
Where would that number have been if we hadn't had turbines repurposed this year, with all the rock they hauled it? Would we have done much of that anyway? Because a lot of that was done on some level B roads.
Yeah, you might think it saved us some because some really bad roads got fixed up by then, and they're probably in better shape now than they were before.
It's not over Joe Ocean's head.
No, they're bankrupt.
So, maybe, but we pretty much did just haul all day long when we had guys free, throw them in a truck, drive, haul. I mean, a stockpile, so they're just continuously hauling from Fertile and one of the roads, but yeah. And you see that number can vary. It can. And I know in times if they get to June and, you know, the budget's done and we're hauling, push a bill and, you know, juggle it a little bit, but for the most part, we haul what we need to haul and try to make it work. I don't think we've had a time where we said, that's it, we're cutting them off, because we get enough heat the way it is for trying to keep, you know, roads neat and shaped up. So I think it's important to have a strong budget there.
How does it go? A, B, does it go to level C? Is there level C?
We have a couple level Cs. They're just dirt roads with gates.
And then it goes to abandoned?
If the road's not landlocking somebody, we can vacate the right of way and turn it over to the landowners, and then our hands are washed of it. I think it's been done a couple times.
There's one by Thompson, I think.
Over there, towards Buffalo north of the Highway 9, we did it just a few years ago.
Did about really cold, but working.
And, I'm trying to think, is it Oxford, who was it that, I think he might own land on both sides of the road, one.
Yeah. Voluntary vacations are by far the easiest. But I thought one the other day, somebody asked me about, I can't remember, but it was 1 mile level B over by Neil Stephenson. Quarters on every point of it. So if you vacated and abandoned the roadway, even if you shoved it out with dozers, everybody could get to their property. We'd have one less road to maintain. Is that worth it? I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, if you start to accumulate some of these, I'm sure it would matter. It'd be 50 years later, you'd be happy you did it. I'm sure.
It's a in route for trying to get to an elevator.
Yeah, maybe. This one there's level Bs on both sides of it, and it's not many residents out there, so I wouldn't think it'd be a big deal. But, you know, there's plenty of people who drive it, as evidenced by all of the snow that's been driven through out there.
Yeah.
You know, we don't plow the snow off, and there's tracks through it, so somebody's driving
Some
out
of
there.
that steer hunters should help to
Yeah.
tow ropes with them and shovels and digging stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, a lot of cases, somebody could say, I will drive that road a lot if it's there, but if it isn't, I won't. So, you know, how much sort of economic impact is that? I think unless you're going to try to, you know, pick 10, 20 of them and say, that's it, we're going to try to pursue this, it'd be hard to see a, you know, a noticeable impact. It's like when they did level Bs, they didn't do 1 or 2. They took a territory and said, we're going to make a territory's worth of level Bs, and we're going to get rid of a maintainer, an employee, employees' benefits, and we're gonna save 300,000-400,000 a year. Maybe it's not that much, 150, whatever it is. So that's why we try to be protective of our level B system, so that we don't get 1, 2, 3 more and then get strung out that much further.
Oh,
They were mopping floor.
Floor scrubber in there.
So that's the story on rock. Kind of tells itself. The next one is diesel. That one tells itself too. It's kind of proportional to how bad the winter is, because if we're spending diesel on plowing snow as opposed to stockpiling rock, that direct proportion. It's not in the winter maintenance category, but that's one of the biggest indicators of how bad our winter is. So, say based on our trend, we should be up around 313. Yeah, but 16 and 17 were pretty low, and so I think 250 is a good number there. I think it should be enough. Okay, and equipment, 450 is what we had in the budget last year. If you remember, we've split that number among rural basic direct expenditures and secondary road expenditures. Planning to do that a little different here because we've done the juggle with health insurance. And so, anyway, 450,000 is kind of what I think our fleet depreciates a year. So if we can put that much into our fleet, we'll keep our fleet about the same. That's the idea. If we don't invest into our fleet what it depreciates, it'll all get continuously worse as a group. And we've had some pretty big repairs this year. New engine and a mower tractor and a couple new transmissions rebuilt in a couple trucks. So, with that much downtime, you got to have a good fleet to be able to cover, because our standby equipment is pretty much running full time in order to keep up with the downtime from the repairs of the other stuff. So I know that's a big target item always.
Mower tractor with the new mower, was that the one you traded off, or was that the one?
No, the one we didn't get to. So we got 2 pretty much brand new mowers with a couple hundred hours on them, and the third one that we didn't get traded off from 2001, I think, with 5,700 hours on it. It's highlighted on there.
Transmission on that
Engine.
engine.
So, we spent the value of it, and so now we're going to try to work that off. But
Only $1,500.
I mean, you got to keep in mind, they're not putzing around the yard. These guys are running mowers. 99% of their life, wide open, mowing rocks and sticks in the ditch. They get worked hard.
Well, the engine is just, the thing that's getting beat there is the mower. The engine's pulling hard.
Full out RPMs, running the hydraulics for the mower.
I got a friend of mine, he's got an 806, he's got the original engine, and over 30,000 hours on it.
Sure, he's lucky.
And
And he's probably taking really good care of it, and he's probably got a, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, no, in the mine, it's going to run a lot of feed grinder, which is still probably relative.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just seems like it's not very long. If you've been taking care of them, and I know it gets mechanized a while, you think you get more hours out of that. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just
Yeah,
saying the equipment must not be as, it just seems like it should last long.
it's probably a similar story as the trucks and maintainers to some degree, but more the trucks, trying to compare it to an over-the-road truck, they just got totally different type of workload. Yeah, mower tractor, I don't know, if you want to take a look at the mower sometime, we'd be happy to show you, but they get beat up. Like I said, I think we take good care of them, and that's just a product of having older equipment.
To me, that seems like a relatively early cut, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's anybody's fault.
Well,
The equipment's
sure,
fault, it's what-
sure, yeah, the risk gets higher as the equipment gets older, and this one I probably, sooner than expected, I guess, which, our goal is always to try and replace equipment before the major repairs, but, your guess is always as good as your stats and your experience with the vehicle. I gave you a current,
So what would be your plan on that tractor now?
we'll probably run it a while and see if we can't kind of recoup the investment. But, cutting our losses and replacing it probably wouldn't be the worst idea either. But we do have other things, I think, that are stretched further. Like we got, these two Oshkosh machines that are just, pretty much waiting to the big repair and then they'll just be done. And then we got two graders, one from 96, one from 2000, over 12,000 hours. And, that's when you start thinking about when's the transmission going to fail, when's the engine going to fail.
I put those Oshkoshes on Craigslist while they were running.
Yeah, we've had some, pretty bad experiences with them in the last couple of years with really soft gravel roads, plowing snow. They really don't float like a grader, so they have really shown themselves to be, pretty helpless in those conditions. So I think transition away from those and into graders is the way to go.
I would, this is just a guess, but I would guess that we did a lot more for them.
I think they,
When they're working.
yeah, I'm sure. They bought them used in, I don't know what years, separate years, I think, but maybe spent 100,000 on them. It can't be worth much now, that kind of hours on it. And it's just, 1989 truck is Oshkosh truck. I mean, what are people going to do with that kind of vehicle?
Oshkosh when I was in high school. Or maybe that was a different one. I don't know.
Yeah, heavy duty trucks for sure. But you can't haul rock with them, they're too heavy for that. And the way our maintainers can do about anything, and then our trucks now all have sanders and.
So would you replace the two Oshkoshes with one maintainer, or?
We like to have, we have 10 snow routes right now, and then we'd like to have 2 standbys. So it probably would be 1 for 1.
You use the Oshkoshes full time for?
Yeah, they run full-time in the winter. They each have a route. And if it's soft, we try to swap in the maintainers. If, we have maintainers running and try to limit their use when it's soft. But when it's cold, I think they work just fine.
Those things are,
With maintainers.
they're full, right? The Oshkoshes?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah. You would think that they would get by fairly well, both across the board.
they just, maintainers got a belly blade, and the Oshkoshes set 2 skis on the road.
You got a lot of weight on that nose.
So they're sitting on the road, whereas the maintainers just hanging the
And they're
blade.
shorter, so when you hit something that throws you like this, where a maintainer can work
4
through.
years ago,
Yeah.
some of the older Oshkoshes, probably the first one we ever had, do 360 on the pavement.
Yeah. And frankly, we ask a lot of the operators who bounce around those things all day. I mean, they're a utility vehicle. They're not meant for comfort.
Yeah, they look like they'd be rough riding.
Yeah, yeah. And pickups don't look too bad. So just one mower and a couple maintainers and a couple trucks that are, to the point where they're due for replacement. So I think this $450,000 budget is a good number to put toward that. Basically, the kind of easiest way for me to look at it is the number of hours or miles that we want to retire these pieces of equipment at. If you divide that by 2, for maintainers, 12,000 hour retirement, divide that by 2, 6,000. So you should average 6,000 among your current fleet is what I think. And we're averaging more than that. So that means that everything's kind of a year or 2 behind to get it to the optimum age. But I think, with that kind of number, we can sort of hold strong with the age of our fleet. The one thing that we don't talk a lot about is we have parts and maintenance, and then the 2 mechanics, their labor, and then all the other guys' labor when they're repairing equipment. Totals up to be over 300,000. I mean, think about the amount of maintenance and repair we do for these vehicles too. It's a big number, so
That's our actual cost, or that's the time they put in?
well, the guys track their labor,
Yep.
and so it's their actual time, and then any parts we buy get,
But it's not a cash outlay, because we pay them anyway, correct?
In a sense, but we could be paying them to do something else that we might have.
No, I know that, but you're using labor that we're paying, that's what I'm trying to get at.
yeah, their labor comes from a
So in other
category.
words, are you saving 300,000 by these guys doing it, or is it an actual cost to us?
I would say it's an actual cost, because we don't do much contract repair work. I mean, Ziegler's does some for us, but not much. So it's almost like you could say, we have a mechanic shop that we hire mechanics for, provide the facility, they pay for the parts, and we're operating a mechanic shop, I guess is what you'd say. That's what they do full-time. They're mechanics, they're like, trained mechanics, and that's their profession.
Cheaper than hiring Ziegler.
And if we had Ziegler do all of our service work, or, all the various truck manufacturers do all the service work, maybe we wouldn't have two mechanics. There's some counties that
Well, we
would do
wouldn't
more
come
often.
close to that figure either.
No, I mean, maybe you'd have them doing something else. I don't know, but,
Wow.
I mean, they're, when they get done with something, they pull that out, and the next thing comes in, and they're just constantly revolving trucks out of there doing preventative maintenance, but mostly, repairs.
I mean, this is kudos to your department. What I'm saying is, we don't have to cash outlay 300,000. We do our labor, okay, but that labor is gonna be there no matter what. Say our mechanics have to sit on their can for 3 weeks because they have nothing to do. I mean, just say that, so, I mean, they get paid anyway, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I mean, that,
So you put $300,000 really in the county's pocket. That's the way I look at it.
I would be afraid of what that number would look like if we hired. the service
Exactly,
guy.
that's right.
It would be close to 3 times as much.
Right.
Sure, just like any repair you send to the shop,
Right, exactly.
on your own vehicle, your car, whatever.
Even when I was still going to the Peterbilt dealerships, they're already around $100 an hour then. I can imagine they're well over that by now.
So, I mean, I think we got good mechanics who do a nice job
Right.
and save the county money, yeah, I do. But, just for, as a comparison, the reason we want to put so much money into new equipment is to try to, limit what our repair budget is. Make sure we don't have 30,000 a couple times a year on these huge rebuilds.
But then you've also got a piece of equipment that now has that rebuild on that end of it. And you can kind of go both ways. I mean, you could save money by utilizing what is still good on it, like the frame and so. Once the frame and stuff goes in, you've got to do something. But, engines and transmissions are replaceable. And they're cheaper than buying new engines and transmissions and new trucks.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that, and, for, my own vehicle that I like and think that I'd spend the time on it and all that, and I'm sure we have plenty of equipment that's like that too, but if you put $35,000 or $30,000 into a Mowat, what could we sell it for?
A lot more than when it was broke, but,
Right, but probably not much more than we just spent on it.
if it's got that in it.
Like we did that with the other mower, right? We had some major problems.
Yeah, no, we did.
All right.
So I guess that's the last of my proposal sheets, but I really worked hard to get through the budget and trying to find $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to move around, to cut, whatever. And I spent more time on it than I have in the past, obviously, with Doug retiring last year. So I kind of know the ins and outs of every single number and where it came from and what the 5-year, 6-year history is on it. And I was hoping to find more money at the end. I frankly wasn't. And it's not like we just want to spend more, because every dollar we save is hopefully going back into the account to be spent on construction and gravel and things that we need. So,
Well, I'm sure we'll probably come up with some questions later, but for now.
I appreciate the way you presented this.
well, I got a folder full of stuff, so you just gotta say the word on what you're looking for, and I'm sure I got it.
Thanks.
Hmm.
You're gonna be a hard act to follow.
Not too worried about it.
I mean, I write down the IT costs because that's our major expenses besides our wages.
Almost.
They didn't even touch it. Did you not give me an hour to present?
I did give you an hour to present.
That's
You
not
took
bad, then.
every second of it.
No, I get
Plus about 15 minutes.
quite a few line items and dollars to go through.
I don't have that many.
So what does this fall under in our sheets?
37, page 65.
And Andy's not coming. He had, I'm always got him, but
Well, he doesn't have his stuff yet from me, or just barely got his stuff from Hancock County, so I knew he probably wouldn't.
yeah, I think they got somebody retiring today down in Hancock County, one of their dispatchers.
Oh,
Our part-time person is taking her full-time spot. She starts tomorrow.
your part-time person is taking her full-time spot.
Sam Goldway is, yeah.
Oh, so now you're losing another one.
Yeah, we're keeping her on the roster though, because she might come back and help us out when we're desperate. But yeah, we're down a full-time and part-time right now.
Oh, no. Have you gotten any applications?
Yes,
Good.
we're gonna try and, we have one more interview tomorrow. We've interviewed, I think, 4 people, 5, something like that anyway, so we're gonna make a decision and,
Well, at least you're getting
yeah.
people interested. Good.
How come the software maintenance agreement is doubling?
Let's see, so which software maintenance, okay, so it, on page 2 of this sheet that I gave you, one of the things that they think we should do that we have not done in the past, it's down here, so in the middle section, the bottom 3 here, they think we should do a penetration testing, vulnerability testing, and backup testing, and that would, those figures are there. So that's where that money has, and it's not mandatory, and Brad's gonna come from NGT and talk to the commission about why we should do that. And then,
So they're gonna try and hack in, is that it?
yeah, they wanna make sure that what we're doing is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So that's what that's about.
You take that with you?
Pretty important for an engineer.
Yeah. I've never left mine anywhere, so. Today.
So yeah, the first line item, that general supplemental fund, increased 1,000. So that's let me think, 5,000 goes to the infrastructure fund, 5,000 from the county, 5,000 from the cities. And then they wanted, the other one goes to IT. They wanted to increase that from 6,000 to 7,000 per, so 14 total. And that money will go to save to replace our server in like 5 years or something like that. So that's why that one increased 1,000. The salaries, it's already been negotiated 3%, so that's a 3% raise for all the employees and the salaries. Other than that, there's not really a whole lot of increase.
Just so I'm sure this is separate from our IT, right, Eric's IT.
Right, they use it.
Everything?
So everyone out at that building uses NGT.
So it costs 15,000 to figure out whether we can be hacked or not.
That's the estimate he gave. And whether or not
What's the
we,
liability if we were to get hacked?
it's a good question.
Is it worth 15,000?
I guess if you get hacked, yeah. I mean, that's what, it's kind of like having insurance. Is it worth it? I don't know. I mean,
In a lot of cases, no.
Well, I guess-
right,
What's that?
In a lot of cases, no.
right. It's just, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I'm ignorant on this stuff, so.
Well, I'm not that intelligent on it either.
Don't take these as critical questions.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
Shouldn't NGT, have this stuff running so we shouldn't get hacked?
That's a very good question. And these are questions that I would encourage the commission to ask when we talk to them, because it does a lot of money.
Yeah.
And is it,
It's a lot of money for something that may never happen.
right?
So the question we can ask our IT person
Mhm.
is, are we doing this for here
Here,
already?
you'd think it'd be more crucial than.
Yeah, we have
anywhere
a lot
else.
of
You
information,
get somebody in here for ransomware, you're gonna have a problem.
yeah, and
And, out there, you can still kind of go through to see who's in.
Well, and I think
We have people's social security numbers. We have thousands.
Oh, yeah, they can hack and get that, I
Yeah.
guess. So,
I mean, we don't have anybody's financial information, but we have all their identifying.
they also can have their system all locked down through ransomware.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah, we need that. I think
But
that's.
that's also why we do the trainings every
Right,
year.
yes.
And so that hopefully,
I assume that
Right.
they're gonna hire some outside company to try and hack in, is there,
I'm not really sure
Or
what,
just more of
what
their
that
time
all-
outside of
yeah, I
their
don't know if they
I'm guessing it's their time.
designate some people to sit there and
No.
try and hack the system.
you're on the commission, right?
Okay, then the other question I'd like you to ask them is, how long is this good for? I mean,
right.
good for just a
Maybe
year?
planning on having to do it.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, and honestly, I haven't had much time to spend with Brad to go over this and so I don't know what all, yeah, that entails. I did ask him if it was possible to do like, do one of them this year and the next, something else next year, so it's not all in the same fiscal year cost. And he said it really works better to do it all together. So that's about the only thing that I've asked him about that. But yeah, I definitely having questions about what that all entails, because it does seem like a lot of money. And is it possible that we could have somebody else, if they are gonna hire somebody, or could we hire somebody else? I mean, we obviously don't want people breaking into our courthouse like happened in Des Moines, but is it something that we could get elsewhere? I don't know. And I don't know what backup testing, I don't know what that entails either, what that is, but.
It probably has to do with when the system goes down, does the backup work,
Yeah, I
the
suppose,
crossover?
right, which we've kind of had some live ones and, for the most part, it's definitely better. And, I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm sure we're in a lot better position than we were 5 years ago, even just having them maintaining all of our, and like you said, doing the trainings and all of that, so yeah, I don't know if it's necessary or not. But yeah, the commission can certainly say, no, we're not paying for that, and then
That's not what I said, I just, you know.
Well, no, and I'm just saying they can, because it's not, that is one of the things IT wise that we don't have to have. Everything else, it's like, well, we're kind of locked into.
This is one of those things where it may not ever be needed in a sense. It should have been kind of provided to head it off anyway. And the people that sell the service, they say it's absolutely needed.
Well, of course they do. So does the insurance guy.
Yeah.
Gotta have it.
That's right, yeah, insurance companies,
Is that like extended warranty on your cars?
yeah, evidently.
Might be able to get some kids to do it for free. Try to hack it in.
I'm just going through the sheriff's budget, to see if there's any extra IT or things like that, and I don't see any great increases, but
Yeah, I mean, some of our, like our data processing equipment, that's gone down a little bit. But yeah, for the most part, most of our stuff is kind of stayed even keel.
Are these recurring annual costs? All of this?
On the IT,
Yeah,
let's see, pretty
with the
much.
exception of the testing here.
So, yeah, let's see, on page 1, he's got a few things that we're looking at spending in future fiscal years. The server, the one that says server data processing equipment, that's the 14,000 I talked about saving annually for replacing the server eventually. We're gonna try and replace one
So
PC a year.
you have a separate server than we have here?
Mhm.
and the backup for there is down in Hancock County.
Yes.
So that's how that backup works.
But yeah, the IT services, that's annual, and then, on the second page, the accessories, that's kind of, I mean, that's replacement, monitors and stands. And then they suggested 7,000 contingency dollars for failed hardware, but I took that down to 2,000. I figure we can do a budget amendment if we need it. Because our stuff is pretty new. I don't see a whole lot failing, I hope. And then the software maintenance agreements, those are all annual as well.
I just thought about this. When you do your communications meetings, that's a public meeting, right?
Yep.
You should probably be posting it.
I do.
Out here, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
I've seen it.
well, look at you go.
Yeah.
Most people just email it to me and then I
Oh.
put it out here. That's why I
Okay.
didn't, I guess I didn't realize.
Yeah, I think last time I did email it to Chris, but
Oh.
yeah, I usually print it and just post it up there.
Okay,
But yeah,
good.
So I remember one time thinking, oh shoot, yeah, I gotta go to that.
How observant I am, I guess.
If it's out of sight, it's out of mind.
well, I don't usually get it up too far in advance either, so be honest about
Except
that.
for last year one time.
Did I get it up
It was
there?
a month ahead of time.
Oh, right.
Well, like I said, no real question on it, saw it there, I guess we talked about it.
Alright,
All right, well, thank you.
Other than that, your budget has gone down. You take that 15,000 off of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are we adjourned?
Call or bill?
I don't know, Cal, you guys want to stay a little longer?